So I've been wanting to make a fresh new deck, and since I've apparently become quite the Ruby player on accident, I decided to begin development on a Ruby Steel deck, aiming to make the best one available in the format, or at least get a good start. There's a ton of variables that factor into what makes a good deck, but despite that, I think this current brew of mine is quite strong. Don't get me wrong, the 5-0 record is certainly not a great representation of the deck's strength. It needs much more testing. But after those few great games on the ladder, plus a successful run in my testing group, it's clear this list has potential, so I wanted to go ahead and share the deck. But enough talk, let's get into this Ruby Steel deck. And let's start by examining the competitive strength of the Ruby Steel combo as a whole. As the two colors that most represent removal in Lorcana, naturally it's been an interesting duo since the beginning of set 1. Just the idea of combining together so much raw power seems good at a glance. But in practice, this deck has never really been able to get off the ground. In fact, it's arguably the worst ink color combination in the game in terms of success, and it has been across both sets. But I love alternate strategies, and I love creativity that leads to underrated decks, so I dove in head first. One of the major reasons why Ruby Steel struggles is its lack of card draw. I mean, just think about set 1. Amber and Amethyst had plenty of card draw, Ruby had 0 card draw, and Steel had very situational card draw. Of course, Whole New World can draw you 7 cards and works wonders combined with Amber and Sapphire, but Whole New World doesn't always synergize with Ruby. The major card strength in Ruby, especially in set 1, was found in mid to late game cards that just didn't want to be stuck in hand, either uninkable or unplayable, just to be discarded by a Whole New World. And this is why, other than in a few specific decks, Ruby has almost entirely been a color used in control style decks. Fast forward to set 2, Rise of the Floodborn, and Ruby finally has some card draw, although a bit awkward, and Steel has more tools as well, some like Beast being really powerful. But there's also shiny new card draw options in Amethyst and Sapphire. These new ideas continue to push Ruby Steel to the wayside as the meta largely develops around keeping up with the card draw and lore engines of the Amethyst bounce package. Despite all this, I think there's some untapped potential with Weight Set, a lesser seen card draw tool from Steel. Weight Set has provided at least one off-meta Emerald deck some success despite Emerald's lack of card draw, but in theory Ruby would be a much better ink pairing. Not only does it unlock better control potential in the mid and late game, but many Ruby characters already synergize beautifully with Weight Set. The potential result at its best would be a tempo style deck that aims to draw cards efficiently on each and every turn, building up power into the late game before taking over. Thanks to high strength characters, plus the tried and true removal of Ruby and Steel, the deck has the reactive strength to respond to aggro decks while drawing each turn from Weight Set. Add in Queen of Hearts, who I think is underrated as a secondary draw tool, and it just might work. Let's go ahead and look at the full deck list, but before we continue, you already know I'm a fan of collectible games with powerful and unique characters. I love finding new combos that benefit from well thought out strategy and creativity, and if you're like me, now is the perfect time to explore the powerful combos available from the top mobile game around. With over 800 champions, the strategic combinations are endless and exciting, and it doesn't hurt that this game is free to play on both mobile and PC. And with 80 million downloads already, millions of players are already experiencing the awesome adventure of Raid Shadow Legends. And now Raid is increasing its roster of awesome looking champions with a brand new rarity, Mythical. A step above legendary champions, these new mythical champions have a special new mechanic, Metamorph. This allows them to change between 2 different forms in the middle of battle. Along with their new look, champions gain unique powers and new synergies as they transform and bring out new strategies to play with. Also, there's big news happening from Raid Shadow Legends happening this month that you don't want to miss. The worlds of Raid Shadow Legends and Monster Hunter are colliding in an amazing limited time crossover. From January until March 5th, players can collect 5 Monster Hunter themed legendary champions based on iconic monsters from Capcom's action RPG franchise. Plus, every player can easily get the Rathalos Blademaster legendary champion for free simply by logging into Raid for 7 days between now and March 5th. With all this exciting stuff and more coming to Raid, you gotta check it out and start playing. Click on my link in the description or scan my QR code and you'll get instant bonuses like silver, additional XP, or chicken. You can also use this code on screen for extra goodies right when you log in. Come find me in-game with my username and join my clan if you want to adventure together. Hit that link to download and play, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Now back to my Ruby Weight Set deck. Before we dive into some gameplay, let me break down the concept of this deck one step further by running through the deck list. Your number 1 plan each game is to find and play Weight Set on turn 3. Beyond hard scouting for it in the mulligan, you can dig one additional card down on turn 1 with Simba Future King. Turn 2 is then ideally Hercules, as you can eventually shift in Floodborn Herc on turn 5 for 4 ink, using your extra ink to draw off Weight Set. Gaston is also included as another turn 2 option, both as an early defense against aggro, but also still useful later in the game as his 4 strength can proc Weight Set. Your turn 4 will be spent playing a 3-cost character with your 4th ink used to draw a card. This is why the deck is so heavy on 3-cost, 4-strength characters. This momentum on turn 4 is a key moment in the game, but don't count Naveen and Baloo out as simple vanillas. High strength is very useful in the meta right now, especially when ahead in questing. Opponents who want to take out your characters will have a hard time trading efficiently with your board. And speaking of questing, Lilo is here as well. She has only 2 willpower compared to 3, but her ability to quest for 2 is crucial in this deck. One weakness of this list is that it can be slow to close out games. Compared to other decks and ink combos, its characters don't gather lore very quickly, and Lilo will help to cover that weakness. After this, the deck continues to curve up with high strength characters with Mulan, Maui, Queen of Hearts, and Beast. All of these cards provide additional utility, from rush and card draw to item destruction, all while activating Weight Set. At the 6-cost ink slot, Floodborns join the party with Hercules and Tinkerbell plus 2 copies of Lady Tremaine. She doesn't activate Weight Set like the others, and I've been leaving her out of Ruby lists more and more in favor of Dragonfire, but in this case, the deck does benefit greatly from her 2 lore, so I split her and Dragonfire at 2 each. Maleficent Monstrous Dragon also makes the list as a late game force, and finally, some famous Ruby Steel removal joins to round out the list, with Let the Storm Rage On, Grab Your Sword, and Be Prepared. I suspect I don't have to explain these all that much. And the final secret edition as the cherry on top is You Can Fly. An odd choice to be sure, but a great one. The popularity of Surfer Mini isn't going to change anytime soon, and although Fidget and Jafar are great responses, You Can Fly allows any character to take her down without adding in any additional characters that don't work with Weight Set. Beyond this, and perhaps more importantly, You Can Fly is a surprise card that can finish out games, throwing Evasive onto a questing character that would otherwise be banished on the following turn. I know it sounds clunky and perhaps just unnecessarily alternate, but so far it's been working fantastic, and there's a couple examples of that in the gameplay. Right before we get to that, it's worth mentioning that this deck has a lot of other options up for consideration, especially these shown. Smash is potentially a better choice over Storm, but I like the card draw from Storm here, and turning Baloo or Naveen to Sing Storm only has the opportunity cost of 1 lore in this deck. If you'd like to add even more card draw, Whole New World and Tragic Beast are clearly strong considerations. I've tested both a bit and are leaving them out for now, but I'd love to test these even further. And of course, there are other characters with over 4 strength that could be added in, Aladdin being a notable choice. But with these final options and considerations mentioned, let's dive into some gameplay. As discussed in the breakdown, the number 1 goal during the mulligan is to find Weight Set, as well as a 3-cost character to play down on 4 to draw with it. This is always the priority unless you're up against a hyper aggro deck that needs a response during the early turns. In this game versus Control, I find a good first hand with Weight Set and Lilo to play after on turn 4. I could also keep the Mulan and Beast to have a full curve up on turns 5 and 6, but I throw them back, preferring to find cards for turn 1 and 2. I end up with 2 Simbas, which I go ahead and ink and play. His draw 1 or discard 1 ability can be used to find Weight Set, or that turn 4 3-cost character if I hadn't found them yet. In this case, I discard the Mulan drawn. I don't need her in this matchup, and I'd rather play the second Lilo and begin questing with her against Ruby Amethyst. On turn 2, I draw into Small Herc, which is perfect. I can play him out and shift 4 into Big Herc to draw off Weight Set on turn 5. You can see how this deck feels like a tempo deck, where each turn is planned specifically to get as much value out of it as possible. The ultimate goal would be to draw each and every turn with Weight Set, filling up my hand with all the removal needed from this ink duo. On turn 3, it feels bad, but Tink is likely the best choice for ink here. Again, I'm hyper fixated on drawing off Weight Set each turn, especially in a matchup like this where falling behind in card draw could be suffocating. My opponent takes down Simba and draws off Cusco, before drawing again with friends on the other side. I draw myself by playing out Lilo and questing with Herc. Questing with him is risky though, as a 1-cost plus bounce fox can ruin my plans to shift him, so keep that in mind. They play out Merlin Goat, so I continue my game plan. Shift in Herc and quest for 4, putting me at 8 lore. You can see now how my board is quite threatening. They could challenge with Goat or rush in with Maui or Fox, but my character's strength is likely to take them out as well. But they are just a few turns away from B prep, and I could hit 12 lore next turn, so they have to play defensive here. After they take down Lilo, I play out my other Lilo, saving Beast in case they have Spellbook. I draw into another Hercules and decide it might be worth playing him too. I know I can draw again next turn with Weight Set, so I might as well put out more lore on the board and play aggressively before they can remove it. They played Lady Tremaine, so I choose and banish Small Herc. Back on my turn, I quest for 4 more and play out Maui just to draw a card. Again, saving Beast for Spellbook, even though most control decks don't run it these days. They wipe out the board on 7 as expected, and now I'm in an awkward position. I could play out either Beast or Hercules here to draw a card, but I'm a prime target for another Tremaine here. The silver lining or steel lining of this deck is that card draw though. It's a consolation prize for the Tremaine that's likely to come out. After that, I play out my own Lady Tremaine, testing to see if they have their third available. It's pretty likely they're only running 2 or 3 copies, but they do indeed have at least 3, and of course have them available at the moment. I play out Queen of Hearts, continuing to draw each turn with Weight Set. My opponent plays Ursula, which can be a real pain for steel, but luckily I'm also on Ruby. They also add Olaf to the board, wisely preventing a Tremaine play on Ursula. Here I draw into Tink, as well as a second Weight Set, which is tempting, but I think it's better to deal with that Ursula while I can. And even though I don't get to draw off that play, I have successfully found myself with a matching hand size, which is always welcome. My opponent hits me with their 4th Tremaine though. I mean, seriously, who's running all 4 of these? You can see me even check their discard to make sure I counted right. But hey, it worked out quite nice for them, plus they bounce it back to their hand for later. Because of them bouncing Tremaine back to their hand, I make sure to send out 2 characters on my turn as I play out Tinkerbell and Simba. They respond with Elsa, freezing my board. Before I drop my Be Prepared, I take a turn to draw up more with Maui. They'll need to play defensively here anyways, especially with such an empty hand. All they have is that single Tremaine. So if I can take down all their resources or gain more value off my B prep, building back and gaining control of the board will be much easier. Because I have such a lower lead, they can't afford to quest their board and instead need to challenge in. After they challenge in, I find quite the juicy opportunity here on my next turn. I consider inking and playing dragon, but the alternative is just too good of a line to pass up. I draw a card off blue and wipe the board with grab your sword. My opponent draws cards with friends on the other side and plays out the Tremaine that was previously bounced to their hand. And they hover that final card in hand, so I suspect it might cost 2 or less ink, but they pass the turn back to me, so I take down Tremaine with Maleficent Dragon. And now I'm in a really great spot. It's up to them to respond now. They draw with Rabbit and play out Goat, and on my turn I flood the board, drawing up cards and demanding an answer, otherwise I'll take the win. Back to them, their bouncing rabbit finds them exactly what they need, the dreaded Be Prepared. On my turn, I send out Giant Tink, ready to quest for 2, and I know they don't have any more Lady Tremaines left to stop me. They'll need to find something else. They do have their own dragon now though, so Tink gets incinerated. And back on my turn, I show off exactly why dragon-type moves are super effective against dragons. Then I play out Beast, ready to quest up to 20 once again. Once again, my opponent has to drop Be Prepared down to stop me, and back on my turn, I find Lilo and play her out along with Gaston to draw 2 more cards. You can see how this deck wants to operate. Yes, I'm being stalled out as expected versus Ruby Amethyst, but because of the characters in my deck, I'm always able to end turns with the same hand size, never running out of gas. This time around, their Rabbit Bounce finds them exactly what they need once again, this time Ursula bringing me down to 17 lore. But back on my turn, I draw into my own secret weapon, You Can Fly. I throw this down on Lilo, making her evasive and safe from Snake or any other challenges rushing in. This ultimately ends out the game with my opponent finally unable to find the answer they need. This was a hard-fought battle, but I really felt great about how resilient my list was going up against so much removal and card draw. After all, we both drew through most of our decks, and I was still able to take the win. Also, shout out to my opponent there, Numbskull, for dropping by after the game. In this next match, I'm up against Sapphire Steel, which can be a scary combo to face. I ink everything but Simba in my opening hand, trying to find that all-important weight set. I don't find it at first, but I do end up grabbing it after my Simba comes out. My opponent plays out their Popsicle, starting things out strong, and I follow that up with a second Simba since I don't have an ideal 2-cost character. The good news about Sapphire Steel is that it's fairly easy to quest early game against them. You just gotta watch out for their insane ink ramp into a whole new world. I play out my weight set next and continue to quest with my Simbas. They sing One Jump Ahead with Grandma Tala and then play out their Fishbone Quill. I play Lilo over Naveen next turn. Lilo is here to quest much faster, but if they do have some steel removal like Smash, Storm, or Grab Your Sword, it'll feel pretty bad to see her removed right away. They ink up to 6 now, so they play out Big Tinkerbell and take down one of the Simbas with Grandma Tala. They end their turn by inking again with Fishbone Quill, so I can all but guarantee they have Whole New World in their hand at this point. Unfortunately, I'm just shy of the 6 ink needed for Tremaine here, so I play out Baloo and decide not to draw off weight set. On their turn, my opponent trades in as expected, and then plays out Beast before wisely healing up their Tink with Popsicle. Now I can't just trade in with Baloo and then Tremaine their Beast away. But Tink and Beast are still both pretty good targets, so I slam Tremaine anyways and continue questing with Baloo. My opponent plays out their second Tragic Beast, so they might just attempt to starve me out now, not playing Whole New World at all, which is probably a good idea. And I definitely need to deal with their beasts soon. For now, I play my own different beast and take out their item, then quest up to 12. They replace their Fishbone Quill, use it, and also play One Jump Ahead, and then finally play out Sisu, which is pretty cool. I like seeing that card out and about. They also take down Baloo and quest their other beast, which is odd. It seems like they would take down the Tremaine instead. Perhaps they're baiting me into hitting both beasts instead of questing, but I decide to just go to 16 here after playing out more characters. After all, 16 with 4 characters on board is pretty threatening. After drawing with Popsicle and Sisu, my opponent takes out Tremaine and uses Let It Go on Beast, and then they play out their third Tragic Beast, still holding onto that one card they've had from the beginning. I draw Be Prepared, which is a no-brainer play in this situation. 2 beasts plus Sisu stops them from drawing 3 cards next turn. Now the board and our hands are equalized, but I've managed to rack up 18 lore so far, so I'm feeling good. My opponent plays out Grandma Tala plus what I thought was a Whole New World, and it's actually Beast Mirror. A really fun off-meta card that might seem underwhelming, but it's probably really good here compared to Whole New World. They certainly wouldn't want to hand me 7 cards at this point. They use that Beast Mirror to draw and ink a Hercules of their own, and back on my turn, I simply play out Queen of Hearts and pass. Queen of Hearts gets hit with Fire the Cannons, and then conveniently the Smash drawn with the Beast Mirror right afterwards. I throw down my second weight set and then draw 2 cards with Lilo. My opponent finds Hiram here, definitely a relief as they have to draw more cards and deal with this Lilo, otherwise they'll just lose. And they do find that damage they need to stop me from taking the game. On my next turn, I play out Beast, who takes down his own mirror, and now they'll have to quest with Hiram or top deck the perfect response to stop Beast from questing to 20. I also play out Hercules and have Big Herc in my hand, ready to shift in for the win as well. After Hiram quests, they have Big Tink and Grandma Tala, which just isn't enough to stop me. Good game. In this final game, I'm up against a Steesong Flute deck. I keep Gaston in my hand to play early if necessary, and throw everything else back in search of weight set. I don't find it this time around, but I at least have some great early game options. And I can draw off Queen of Hearts on turn 5 as a backup plan. However, my turn 1 scout with Simba finds me that weight set after all. I discard Gaston as I'll be playing out Hercules on 2, however the reverse might be better in certain situations. They start out with Stitch, and I play out Herc, Quest, and pass. They play out Cinderella and pass without questing with Stitch, signaling that they likely have a Rockstar Stitch ready to go on turn 4. I play out Weight Set on turn 3 and quest. Questing is fine here, as I'd prefer them to trade in with me rather than shift in their Floodborns. They play Strength and use Cindy to take down Hercules, no doubt hoping to stop a Shift Herc from coming down on turn 4. On my turn, I play out Naveen and draw with Weight Set, but I do need to keep in mind that they could shift in Stitch here and sing A Whole New World if they have it. But I also have to draw to make sure I have ink if they don't reset our hands. They play out Ariel next, but don't hit a song, which is good for me, and they pass again. Next turn could be a big one for them. Instead of giving them more targets for song removal, I decide to play out my second weight set and see what they have. They shift in Rockstar Stitch and then decide to pass without inking. I'm thinking they must have a whole new world in hand, and the other cards must also be uninkable, probably at least one being Sleepy's Flute. I play out Mulan, Quest, Ink, and Pass. I could have inked first and drawn a card off both my weight sets, but to me it's pretty clear they want to reset our hands. The time comes and they slam Flute plus sing A Whole New World. After they draw 7, they find another Flute plus play out a bonus Tiana. Before passing, they also quest with Rockstar Stitch. This is definitely the right move against Ruby, as I could take him down with Dragonfire, Be Prepared, or even Tremaine in this position. After considering my options, I trade in as expected and decide to ink to 7 and pay 6 for Big Hercules plus 1 draw off weight set. My opponent plays out Giant Tinkerbell and passes. Again, they can't turn their Tiana here, otherwise she falls to Hercules, leaving Tink solo and susceptible to a Lady Tremaine. I decide to play out another Hercules here, this time drawing 2 off the play. Hopefully I'm safe from a second Whole New World for a few more turns. Hercules is great here as he survives Tinkerbell, and even if they could take him down with Tink, my second Hercules nullifies her secondary 2 damage ping. My opponent then hard plays Cinderella Stout-Hearted, and that's quite enough value for me, so I quest and drop Be Prepared before sending out Small Herc. I still have another big guy to shift in if needed in the future. After Ariel and Stitch go down along with a song, it's back to me. This is a great turn that showcases the creative expression in this deck and why it's so fun to play. I have a few different great lines here, but after some thought, I decide to forego the tempting weight set card draw and instead use all 10 ink to wipe their board. That should stop them from easily singing songs with either Ariel or a shifted Stitch. On the next turn, they proceed to pay full price for A Whole New World and follow up with a few cards on board. But if you know anything about Ruby or Steel, you'll know I'm quite happy with that play. Now I have 7 cards, a full tank of gas to end out the game. I quest up to 18 and send out Beast, who hates flutes, and then I throw You Can Fly onto Herc and play out Lilo for good measure. This pressure brings out the surrender, and now I've taken down the trifecta of top decks, all in a row in one session. Not bad for Ruby weight set. So after all that, what do you guys think? Is this deck worth testing further? If you want to see more of it, let me know down in the comments, and also let me know if you have any suggestions for this list. I have a feeling there's a few Ruby Steel enthusiasts out there that could share some great ideas. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to support Lorcana at your local game stores, and make sure to check out and subscribe to other creators. There's some great content out there. Finally, thanks again to Raid for sponsoring this video. Sponsors help make content like this possible, so don't forget to check out Raid Shadow Legends. You can get started and get great bonuses with my link in the description. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Peace.